So today I'm back out here in the workshop. I'm going to be spray painting parts for the Allis Chalmers tractor. I do have the correct color of orange now, so I've got the right paint. But last time I painted this, I did get a little bit of overspray on the floor in here, so I ended up buying an inflatable paint booth. That sounds really weird, but it's this paint booth that you can set up in a matter of minutes, and you have an enclosed area to be able to spray paint your parts. I really think, it sounds weird, but I think it's going to work out really well. I also want to talk about the previous paint job I put on here. I have found several issues with it now that it has dried. So I want to cover that later in the video. First thing I want to do is just get the paint booth, get it up here and set up and see how it's going to work out. So I've cleaned out this area right here in the middle of the shop to set the spray paint booth up in. So let's go ahead and grab it and we'll get it set up in here and see if it's going to work. So it looks like it comes with a bag to store it in and the paint booth's inside there, and then it has this blower motor to inflate it. So get it out and set it up. Well, you can see this is going to take up quite a bit of the workshop. It did take a few minutes to try to get that all unfolded from the way it was packed up. So back over here, we've got the blower motor, and there is this short run that comes out the back, and then it ties off right here to attach the two together. I just need to plug this in, and then this should start to inflate. A little power switch in here. Starting to inflate. Well, it's starting to stand up. This is going to take up the whole shop. Well, my problem was this zipper's open, that lets the air out. I need to get this zip shut and then I think it'll actually inflate. All right, trying again. Oh yeah, look at that. It's starting to stand. Well, that didn't quite work either. The ends, or that end wants to slide inward. It don't want to stand up. She went. All right, I finally got it inflated and stood up on its own. And walk inside of here. You definitely have plenty of space to be able to paint. You got a man door over here, and then you've got a drive-in door right there where you can drive in a vehicle and try to paint it inside of here. Now, I will admit this is going to be tight for a vehicle. This is 20 by 13 and 9 feet tall, but it should work for what I need. So I went ahead and I closed up the drive-in door on the front. It's all zipped up now. I opened up the filter on the side that lets air kind of filter through here as it circulates. Go through the man door here on the back. So what you do is you unzip one of these holes right here, and that'll cause air to circulate in. So you're constantly getting fresh air, and then it'll go out the filters on the side and filter the air back out to keep the paint from getting out in your room. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some sawhorses in here with some plywood on there, and we'll lay out all our parts and we'll get them painted up inside of here. So I think I've already damaged it just a little bit. So I have all these Allis Chalmers parts laying out here on the floor that I still need to clean and paint. And this wanted to lay down on this side, and it was getting caught on these parts. And I'm pretty sure something down here sharp ended up putting a hole in the side right there. So I've got a little bit of air leaking out. I'm about to find a patch for that. This is pretty much like the same material that a tent would be made out of. At least that's what it reminds me of. So I think if I could find a patch for like a camping tent, I could be able to put that on there and seal that back up. So there was no instructions included with this. You just have to kind of figure it out. But they did include some patch material with it. So I've got a couple sheets of the material. So maybe I just need some kind of a glue where I can cut out a piece and just glue it over that spot, and that would patch it up just fine. But no instructions, but it's pretty simple to figure out. So I've laid out the Allis Chalmers parts that I already have primered. And we'll go ahead, we'll get one side of these painted up, and then we'll have to come back, we'll flip them over and have to do the other side another day. All right, gonna turn off the gas. No pilot lights. All right, we've got Allis Chalmers Persian Orange #1. That's the correct paint. Got our air line. We'll just zip it up here in the corner of the door for our spray gun. All right, I think the paint turned out good this time. Pretty happy with the results, at least so far. This is one that had the wrong color on it. I repainted over it. This is a test piece to see how it does. But I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna get these out of here. That way I can turn off that motor and let this thing deflate. It's pretty noisy in here. Oh, I'll lean it toward me so it doesn't roll off. All right, time to deflate it. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna let these dry overnight, and tomorrow I'm gonna flip all these parts over, and I'll go ahead and I'll put them back in the paint booth and get the other side painted. And then all of these parts should be done, and it'll be a good test to see whether the way I mixed the paint and everything works out good this time, because I had a lot of problems with the last paint job I did. And let's go ahead and we'll talk about that. So it all started with, I was cleaning the shop for this inflatable paint booth, and I found a seal that I forgot to put in this axle right here. So I had to tear it all back apart and put a seal in it and put it back together. And when I did, all of the paint on here did not want to stay on. It chipped off very easily. So you can see all of the paint ended up coming off the bolts. You can see some of the paint came off around the edge. And of course over here where we took these bolts off, a lot of the paint come off as well. So that got me worried that the paint was not adhering very well to the tractor. So I started looking at this a little bit closer, and I was able to actually scrape the paint off with my fingernail. And to me, that is ridiculous. So I'm not sure how well you're gonna be able to see that, but see, I was able to just scratch my nail across here and take the paint off. I can still scratch the paint off the tractor with my fingernail. Isn't that crazy? I shouldn't be able to do that. Now I might expect that to happen like within a day or two after painting this, but not 2 weeks after painting it. And if I hit it with a hammer, you can tell as well, just like one little hit with a brass hammer and it'll chip the paint right off of here. And it's just not attached no more, it just comes right off. Hopefully you can see that. So not a very durable finish. So then of course that's got me really worried because I was going to spray paint over this with the new color of paint, and if this paint is not adhering, then the new paint probably is not going to stick either. And I think there's a few different reasons why this is happening, or a few different possibilities, okay? So one, I found out today when I painted these parts that I actually mixed my paint wrong last time. I was supposed to put the hardener in and just let it sit for 15 minutes and then let that, they call it sweating in. I don't know, it's probably some kind of, so the paint and the hardener kind of chemically mix. And then after 15 minutes, you can add the reducer, thin the paint and spray it on. Last time I added the reducer and then the hardener all at the same time, mixed it up and just sprayed it on the tractor. I didn't do the sweat in time, I didn't mix them separately. So I kind of wonder if I screwed up like the chemistry of the paint last time, and maybe that's the reason why this isn't sticking. So reason number two could have been the primer. The primer was an old can that I used to spray paint the gravity wagon when I redid it. It was a little bit chunky. You know, I strained it, I mixed it up, I strained it, I sprayed it on. It seemed to work good. I put 2 coats of primer on here. But when you do get this to come off, you can get it to go back down to the bare metal. So then that makes me wonder, well, maybe the primer's not adhering. If I can ding this and get all the way back down to the metal. So maybe it's bad primer. So I ended up buying a new can of primer. So I've got some new for when I spray new parts. So before I painted it with primer, I wiped it all down with mineral spirits and a rag, and I wiped it over to try and get all the grease off of there. I had somebody make a comment that I shouldn't do that, that would keep the paint from sticking. And I've used mineral spirits and paint thinner on all of my projects in the past and painted them, and I haven't had any issues with that. But that still could be, maybe that is an issue. Maybe I shouldn't have wiped it down with mineral spirits. Now I know Pete over at Just a Few Acres Farm, he uses lacquer thinner when he wipes down his tractors before he paints them. So I'm gonna start doing that instead. I know there's other products that you can buy out there to clean the metal before you paint it. So I'll try to go another route, at least on that. I'll use lacquer thinner for now, unless I find some other product to use. And hopefully I'll have better results doing that as well. Look at that, just comes right off. This might actually strip off easier than I think it will. So back to the inflatable paint booth. I knew that this was gonna be large for this area. I knew that I was gonna kind of max out, but it did fit, and I think it will work out fine in the future. I just gotta make sure I've got a big enough area to lay it out in. This is kind of like the medium size. You can get them smaller and you can get them way bigger than this. As they get bigger, they have 2 blower motors, and the price goes up considerably. So this one right here, what was it? 13 by 20 with 9 feet tall, 1 blower. It was under $500. You go up to a bigger one with 2 blowers, you start getting up $1,000 or more. So this was kind of the cheaper way to go. About as big as I could go without having to get 2 blower motors. So I think it'll work out good in the future, and it'll definitely, you know, keep the shop from getting all painted and everything too, right? And slowly turning orange over the years, or whatever color I paint. So it may end up being the mineral spirits. Maybe it did leave a film on there that it didn't want to adhere to, because all the parts that I had hanging over here don't have the same problem. Okay, so they came right out of a sandblaster. I did not wipe them down with mineral spirits. They just hung over there. I primered them. I painted them the exact same time. And this one, you can hit with a hammer, or at least all the parts that were hanging over there. You can hit it with a hammer and it doesn't chip off. I can't scrape it off with my fingernail. It seems nice and hard. And this paint job on all the individual parts that were hanging, they all seem to be just fine. It only seems to be the case, you know, or the body of the tractor. And that is where I use the mineral spirits. So that might actually be what the problem is. But no matter what, if it's all three of those things or one of those things, I think I've come up with ways to address them. One, I'm mixing the paint right. I've got new primer to put on, a new can of primers. Won't use the old one. And then I'll use lacquer thinner or some other paint, pre-paint prep that's specifically made for cleaning metal before painting it. So I'll make sure to change those three things, and we'll see how it does. So right now I am leaning toward having to strip all of the paint back off of this back into the tractor. Now the good thing is it does chip very easily, so I'm hoping that with a wire wheel it'll come right off. Maybe it'll clean up fairly quickly and come off easily, but still, this is just a lot of area to cover and to get cleaned up all over again. And it's a very frustrating, I guess. I want to try to get this right. This is my first time doing this, you know. I want to try to get it right, and I'm definitely making several mistakes along the way. But anyway, I think this is going to be it for this video. We'll just wait and see how these parts turn out. I'll get the other side painted tomorrow. We'll see how they do, and we'll kind of come up with a path forward on how we're going to fix the rest of this. But I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.